Watching the Donald Trump administration, you can't help but think to yourself that that the U.S. is actually isolating itself from the rest of the world. You have to start with the deportation, immigration laws that's going to affect. Donald Trump's charisma is actually making new friends, and I say that sarcastically. Pretty much it looks like it's becoming a Fourth Reich, so to speak. People, we've always warned you, and we've always said, sooner or later, the plans are going to reveal itself slowly but surely. And Donald Trump is definitely using his time to get his point across to make these things come into place. Now, I just got on this morning just to check the news like I always do every morning I wake up. And I'm on CNN and I see an article by Madison Park. I want to make sure I got her name correctly. Yes, Madison Park, excuse me. And she's referring to where the title of the headline says Olympic Stadium turns into shelter for asylum seekers who left the U.S. Now, what I find interesting about the article is when she's talking about the asylum seekers, the only group that she's referring to is the Haitians. I don't see anybody else being mentioned, not the East Indian community, not Muslims or anybody else, but just Haitians. I found that very interesting that she didn't speak on this whatsoever. But according to what the article is, basically in a nutshell, it turns out the Haitians, and let's not forget what happened to the big Haiti quake that happened back in 2010, as people were temporarily allowed to stay in the U.S. But now, most of the Haitians that are here temporarily from that situation are now fleeing to go to Montreal, Canada. And the reason for this is because the immigration laws are supposed to take place in January. They're not seeking asylum in Canada. And pretty much the stadium has opened. There was a stadium that's opened it up. It's the Olympic Stadium in Montreal. It opened its doors as a temporary shelter. Now, according to this, in Montreal, in Canada, has a high population of Haitians. And because they're afraid of what's going on with Donald Trump and these policies that's going to take effect, it's why they're fleeing there and they're very scared. And I can understand their sentiment exactly. Like I said, they're not sure what the laws are going to be. They don't know if they can ever come back. So they're already taking refuge now. As a matter of fact, a lot of people have been caught trying to go over to Canada. But according to the mayor of Montreal, they say they welcome Haitian refugees. So this is very interesting to watch, and I'm going to be paying attention to this story very carefully. But like I said, this is actually another consequence of Donald Trump's immigration policy. And it was 4,000 people who was intercepted as they crossed into Canada this year alone, and that's according to the government's data. And out of 4,345 crossings, 3,350, the vast majority were in Quebec, Montreal once again. So this is very interesting for this to watch this happen. It's very sad that they were a victim of circumstance and now they're still being persecuted, and that's just called for what it is. It's a witch hunt to get them out of the country. That's just called it for what it is. I'm not going to sugarcoat it whatsoever. But that's what's pretty much going on. And like I said, we could probably expect a lot more Haitians to actually flee over to Canada. But like I said, I found it interesting that there was no other group that was mentioned, even though you're talking about refugees seeking asylum. I just found that very interesting that they didn't mention anything else, any of the others but the Haitians. But that's pretty much a short video. I just wanted to touch on that, and that's something I'm going to be paying attention to very carefully. Like I said, things are going to get a lot worse before they get better. And like I said, this is the most dangerous time for us as a people. In fact, there's a story I just found out about yesterday as well, which there's going to be a video as you hear this. That video will be up as well. There's a video stating that the NAACP in Missouri issued a warning to African American travelers coming to that state, and by the time you hear this, that video will be up as well. So I definitely will go into that, but all part of the scheme. This is what Jason Black always stated. While this was going on at the beginning, when they started the immigration laws that certain groups of ethnic groups can come into the country, he warned y'all as a people we need to start getting our stuff together, and why they're focusing on others to get our stuff together so we can prepare for the onslaught ourselves. Because make no mistake about it, it's coming. This is the vision that Trump and his cabinet has had from the beginning. Even though his cabinet has been switching around, like playing musical chairs with positions and getting fired. People that aren't even making it to half a year their positions. So that's interesting in itself. But what can you expect? When you're under Donald Trump, you can't expect good things to happen whatsoever. But this is why we need to prepare, and we need to build our own war chest. so we can fight for our rights to have the money and the means to do so, and the influence to do so, so things like this doesn't happen. But don't you lay your thoughts on this video. Now go ahead and catch y'all on the next one.